Oh, hey look, it came back. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cars of Twisted Metal 2. Today we'll be covering Roadkill. In many Twisted Metal games, Roadkill tends to have average stats across the board, with a special weapon that takes skill to maximize the potential damage. And this iteration of the car is no exception. I will say this right now, if you just got the game, you're better off learning using a different vehicle. Roadkill is one of the vehicles in the series that doesn't necessarily have a consistent special weapon for starters. In Twisted Metal 1, the special was a projectile that didn't necessarily separate itself from a lot of the weapons you could pick up. In all of the appearances from Black onwards, the special needed to be charged in order to deal the maximum amount of damage. For this game, the special weapon is a boomerang-styled projectile. Naturally, you can just use it when an enemy is right in front of you, and it will deal about a fire missile's worth of damage. However, the real power of this projectile comes out when it's coming back. The power increases threefold and can take a very sizable chunk out of your opponent's health, even if it's a bigger vehicle like Hammerhead or Mr. Slam. But, as you can expect, it's definitely a trickier shot to make, so you have to aim off to the side of the opponent you're aiming for, and then maneuver yourself so the opponent is in between you and the boomerang. If you're surrounded, you're better off hightailing it out of there. Landing that shot takes some finesse, and if there's too many things around that are in the way, you aren't making it. Best chance you might have is if you freeze the enemy, and then aim the projectile off to the side so that it comes back and hits the car. But by the time it connects, the enemy is probably thawed and is most likely in close quarters with you now. That said, remember that there's also other people shooting at you as well. And this car is fairly average in all fields for the most part. Because it's smaller in ratio to a number of the other vehicles, the armor is slightly below average, but it does have some zippiness and maneuverability to it. Not nearly as much as, say, Spectre, but enough to be able to get yourself out of trouble. Top speed is 117 and it goes up to 156 under turbos. It's probably best not to hang around fights too often in this car since it isn't quite as armored, so picking people off while they're alone is usually a good strategy. When you're going up against Roadkill, there isn't much that you need to watch for. He'll dish out a lot of the same projectiles that many of the other cars deal out, and he won't necessarily try to aim the boomerang missile so that it hits you on the way back. But one thing that he likes doing every now and then is freeze locking. If you don't know what that is, I've put a link to the video where I describe it in the description. But, long story short, the computer keeps freezing you until you get killed. Roadkill isn't as guilty of it as other vehicles such as Mr. Slam, Hammerhead, or Mr. Grimm, but he's still an offender. While Roadkill isn't necessarily the hard mode by limitation that Sweet Tooth or Hammerhead can be, it still requires some skill to make the best of him. That's why I recommend him to experienced players that want a bit of a challenge. Thanks for watching and look forward to my next review. Who's it gonna be? Subscribe and find out! Have a great day and take care.